In November of 2008, Walt Disney Animation Studios released the movie Bolt, the story of a talking superdog and his wake-up call to the real world. Now, this is a movie that I really liked all the way from my childhood. Of course, I liked it because talking superdog and other talking animals, that was nice. But I also liked it for another big reason. It has trains. The movie has quite a few trains. It is very nice. So, I am going to be talking about Bolt and its trains and its other cool stuff, but I'm also going to be joined by fellow Bolt enjoyers, Western Ohio Interurban History,
Hello.
and SodorExpress Studios.
Hello, everybody.
All right, so we're talking about Bolt and stuff and trains, and it's very cool.
Yes, it will be awesome.
Bark, bark.
Very much so. But of course...
I can't tell if this is... Oh, it is working. Yay.
Okay, good. But of course, we cannot talk about trains and bolts without talking about the peak scene.
Yes, indeed.
The one with CSX.
Yes.
Not
Specifically an SD70M in YN2.
Yes. Not just any railroad, not just any locomotive. A real railroad and a real locomotive in an animated Disney movie. We are not making this up, folks.
Like, what happens 90% of the time in animated films, they'll just slap together some train that's like an amalgamation of a steam engine and a diesel engine. Or if it's a diesel engine, they'll give it chugging sounds. Or if it's a steam engine, they'll just not give it a tender because they don't care. And you'll just have this weird-looking atrocity going across the screen with with inaccurate sound effects. However, in Bolt, it's completely different from that.
I mean, in most films, I'm especially thinking films like Unstoppable, like, they usually make fictional railroads for the purpose of the movie, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, AWVR is pretty cool, and you know why they do it. It's obviously to prevent copyright. And yet, it's very few times where you see, in a movie, like, you can actually have a real railroad that you can go out and see in person. And of course, Disney being such a big company, they're in the perfect position to be able to make that work. And of course, they did.
Mm-hmm.
Not only that... Oh.
Go ahead, sorry.
Not only that, but like... Think about it. It's also in the correct area of the country where you would see CSX. Like, they're not in Nebraska, they're not in New York, they're not in California. They're in CSX territory in the movie, Ohio, and you would see CSX there. And the fact that they show CSX in CSX territory, that's crazy. That's rare.
Speaking of other parts of the country, CSX is not the only railroad in this movie. It gets better, folks. You have TTX, you have Union Pacific, you have Santa Fe. It's a lot more brief, but oh my gosh, they're still there. I mean, it's rare enough to have like one or two accurate train things or like real railroads, but to have this much in a movie that the main focus is a talking superdog, which isn't actually a superdog, but don't worry about it. And yet they remember all of this. That's pretty cool.
There are like a few inaccuracies here and there, but like I don't really care.
And it's
because
like, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Because they put in clear effort and realism almost everywhere else except for like a few parts, so I don't really mind those inaccuracies.
And it's like small things. It's not that big of a deal.
Like there is no CSX SD70M numbered 432. It's actually an AC44CW.
Yep. But still, there is and it was in YN2. It's been repainted since, but
yes. And like there isn't a end of train device, and there isn't.
Yeah.
They're on a one-track line, and they show a double-track signal bridge, which is for some reason acting like a crossing signal. But those are really the only inaccuracies I can think of.
Yeah. And another thing I noticed, I rewatched Bolt like a few months ago, and I hadn't watched it in like years, so that was really nice. But one thing I noticed in the train scene is like The last car has like small writing on it, because you know that a lot of real life freight cars have like writing on them that says like 2-inch comp shoes and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Such a small detail. You wouldn't expect anyone outside of like model train companies or maybe someone making a train simulator model to remember something that small. And yet they remember it in bolts. I didn't
Yeah.
notice, and I noticed this on my most recent rewatch, and I was like, oh my gosh, they remember that?
Yeah.
But anyway, so as you can tell, the train scene, just all the trains in general, the fact that there are this many trains and an animated talking animal movie. I don't want to call it a kids movie per se, but like a family movie.
Mm-hmm.
An animated Disney family movie about a talking dog, cat, and hamster. And it has this many trains. That's
There's one train we forgot about that I think is kind of worth mentioning, but kind of not.
Yeah.
So in the scene where Bolt's being chased through the city by like the green-eyed man's henchmen, you briefly see him get on top of some sort of rapid transit train. But for the life of me, I can't find any real train that looks like it.
Yeah. But I mean, it's still something.
Like it has a slight resemblance to like Long Island Railroad electrical multiple units, and it does have like one giant cab window on the left side, similar to a Bay Area rapid transit unit. But other than that, it doesn't really resemble anything.
Yeah. I mean, it's still something, though. At least they mentioned it.
Yeah.
But of course, there is a lot more to a movie like Bolt than just the trains. There are many other good things to be found here.
I think another thing I appreciate about the movie, it kind of has to do with the trains, but how realistic this film is. Like, except for the talking animals and the cartoonish looking people, this is literally just the normal United States.
Yeah. And they have a few fictional companies, like Waffle World is a big one, but they have so many companies in this movie that are real companies and not just railroads. Like, there's U-Haul, there's the New Yorker, there's 7-Up. All companies that you can find right here in real life.
If this counts, there's also like the vehicle companies that are real too. You see Ford vehicles, you see Honda vehicles, you see Chevy vehicles,
and Chrysler.
Chrysler, like you said, you see a lot of vehicles.
Yeah. I mean, like Joe said, kind of besides the whole talking animal thing, movies especially, like, they might take place in a whole nother universe, and I mean, that's not always a bad thing. There's a lot of world building potential with that, but sometimes it's nice where you can like look at a movie and recognize so much from it.
I have a pretty personal example of this. So a decent part of my life, I grew up in Ohio during the late 2000s. So the parts that take place in Ohio, I can relate to that. Almost everything you see in that part of the movie, actually everything pretty much, I have seen in my life during that time. Like that's what the Ohio sign looked like back then. It's been changed in some parts, but it looked like that in 2008.
I didn't realize it had been changed, but okay.
Yeah, they changed it because Ohio. Because I don't know. I wouldn't say Ohio's cringe. Maybe the guy who changed the sign is cringe, but it should have stayed the same way.
Yeah,
the older sign looked better.
I think there are
like I remember seeing Ford 2003 Ford F-150s. I remember seeing those. And of course, I remember seeing CSX trains. I remember seeing those all the time, especially in YN2.
Yeah. And even for me in the Midwest, of course, I don't see as much CSX, but I still see like a bunch of Santa Fe and Union Pacific and TTX practically nationwide, so everyone can relate to that.
Yeah. One part of the movie I like the most, well, besides the train scene, is like, you know, the part where right after Bolt gets captured, where like Rhino rolls out on his ball out of that alleyway with the ladder.
They're headed to roll, yeah.
There's like this scene where it shows all these old brick buildings, all these downtown buildings. Like, That is exactly like so many small Ohio towns. Like they got the faded 7-Up advertisement.
Yeah.
Like you could compare this to like Botkins, New Bremen, St. Mary's, Wapakoneta, Piqua, Bradford, Covington. Like so many towns in Ohio looked like that
Yeah.
and still do.
That's another thing, yet another thing that I really appreciate about this movie is that it takes place in like almost all of the United States. I mean, most movies, they might just only take place in big city Los Angeles or big city New York, and that's like the only location in the entire film. And again, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it can get really repetitive, especially for anyone living anywhere other than those areas.
Yeah, but
So,
but throughout the movie, Bolton Mittens, they go like everywhere.
yeah, like they are in New York and Los Angeles, but they're also in like they're in Ohio, they're in Colorado, they're
I'm
in
pretty,
Nevada,
I'm
they're in,
pretty sure they end up in Alaska at some point because there's that one shot of them in like a snowy forest, and there's like a big mountain range
Yeah,
ahead of
I
them.
wouldn't say that's Alaska. I think that's somewhere in northern Colorado or somewhere in the Rocky Mountains because there's no way they got up through Canada all the way up to Alaska.
that would be fun though. Bolts on the Canadian Pacific.
That actually reminds me. In like one of the Bolt books, they actually redrew the CSX train. It's the frickin' Via Rail Canadian. It's just
Oh, yeah.
silver Bud passenger cars, the blue stripe, and I'm like, that's not CSX, that's a Via Rail.
Yeah. Maybe it's just passenger cars being transported on a freight train for some reason. I don't know.
Maybe the illustrators aren't doing their job well. Like what's funny is they draw the train wrong, and then on the very next page they draw the animal control truck absolutely perfect.
Yeah. I don't know. But and I mean, of course, Bolt doesn't show like all 48 states, so apologies to the Pacific Northwest and the Deep South, but I mean, it shows the majority at least, and it gives some representation to parts of the country that usually aren't really represented in media all that much, besides like stereotypes. And again, that's much less in a family animated Disney movie.
Yeah. One part of the movie I find kind of funny is when like they get off the truck as it's heading towards Chicago, because as a Chicago resident, or I'm not in Chicago physically, but I'm near it.
Yeah.
They were wise to avoid Chicago.
Yeah. Oh no.
Hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I've been to Chicago before. Maybe it's just because I was a tourist and we only stayed for like several days, but I
Did you
thought
see Joe?
I might have seen Joe and didn't realize it at the time.
Awesome.
I saw a bunch of Metro trains because I remember like I've told this story before, but I went to Chicago on the California Zephyr, and I remember like once we were getting more into like the urban area, like I remember seeing like the Metro trains flashing by. So maybe one of those was Joe. I don't know.
Yeah, probably not.
Shoot. Okay. Well, I guess I'll better have to go back then.
Hmm.
Anyway, back to Bolt. So, of course, the small details are great, and I noticed that one of Bolt's best aspects is it always remembers the small details like real life brands and remembering many different parts of the country. It's a movie that has a lot of small details, but also just the whole plot is nice and the characters and everything like that.
Yeah,
Even if,
Bolt's journey is an aspect of the movie that I really really like the way his character grows and everything.
yeah,
One thing I found funny was that like the green-eyed man, like he uses like fricking. I used frick instead of the F word for obvious reasons, but we see him use, instead of using like tanks and military equipment, we see him use like Chevys. No, not Chevy. We see him use Cadillac Escalades and Chrysler 300s to fight him. I don't know why he chose those. That doesn't really sound like a good idea.
the car insurance companies and the dealership companies be making like massive profit off the green-eyed man.
Yes.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm not gonna name any specific names here because I don't want to cancel anybody. But I have heard that like Bolt's been criticized sometimes for like using some of the same tropes that other movies have. But I kind of disagree with the fact that how some people might say that makes the movie not as good for several reasons. One reason is just because a trope is used more than once doesn't mean it's bad the second time. And I think that's what it needs to be understood here.
Another thing that like I wish people would talk about more was just how funny this movie is at times.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Like the part where Mitten says, "Yeah, I'm really scared," and then she just proceeds to just get okay. How do I use a word that doesn't sound weird? Just get obliterated by
It's like,
Bolt.
yeah, pinned by Bolt. Where is she?
He's like, "You should be." That part cracks me up.
And then there's the styrofoam scene after they
Oh
fall
my
out of the tree.
god! I made an edit of that one time.
Yeah, that was good.
Styrofoam! It weakens me!
Oh yeah, that whole scene, and it's like when Bolt gets hungry and he starts like accusing Mittens. That's
Yeah.
I like how like I like how he's terrified of styrofoam, but also willing to run into a burning building.
Yeah.
that shows his
Kind of
growth.
funny to think about.
It kind of
Yeah.
shows character development though.
Mm-hmm.
And that I've noticed that is kind of a unique part of Bolt that I haven't really seen many other movies do. It's like you've never really seen a dog that doesn't act like a dog, and yet one of the whole points of Bolt is Bolt learning to act
Like a real dog.
yeah, and not many other movies do that. So
Yes.
Yeah.
there's an original thing.
Like another part I find really funny is the pigeon part.
Oh yeah,
I think what contributes to it is that the pigeons move like real pigeons.
yeah,
Yeah.
So it makes it funnier.
yeah.
Like I've reached a point where if I see a pigeon, I will literally say out loud, turn and pull. Turn and pull.
Forget about it. You'll be out in no time.
He's got his melon stuck.
Yep.
Yep, that is one stuck melon.
I feel like if we tried hard enough, we could probably requote the entire movie.
But going back to my kind of rant about how tropes, just because a trope is used more than once doesn't mean it's bad. I'd say one example of this that kind of applies to the whole train thing is runaway trains. There are so many movies out there that use the concept of a runaway train. Does that mean that Unstoppable is suddenly a carbon copy that is just copying other movies? Of course not.
No.
It's one of the most recent examples of runaway trains in a movie.
This reminds me of like when Thomas fans get angry at the existence of Chuggington, even though that show's like completely different in terms of aesthetics and characters.
Yeah.
Like I want to go up to him and say, "Well, hey guys, Thomas the Tank Engine is a copy of Casey Jr. because Casey Jr. is a talking train."
Yeah.
And there's also stuff like Underground Ernie and like Vlachik Kolyachik or The Little Train as it's translated or Play Safe. There's a bunch of examples of talking trains too.
I wouldn't really call Underground Ernie a good example because that show deserves all the criticism it gets.
I mean, I was kind of thinking it wasn't a good example because it's subways and not. I mean, subways are technically trains, but it's like a different type of train, so I could see how it would be different in that aspect.
Like, yeah, but the character designs, they're painful to look at.
Yeah. Yeah. But
Can we just take a minute to talk about Mittens for a second?
Yeah.
Sure.
She is such a good character.
True though.
And with a really tragic backstory too.
I know they kind of hint at that without like telling you the whole thing.
Yeah. Which I mean, like when you put two and two together and realize that not only did her family just completely abandon her, but they also declaw her, which is one of the worst things you could ever do to a cat. Like,
Yeah.
you can't really blame her for having a distrust of people or
Yeah, or dogs or like anyone being like completely cynical. I noticed that
Mhm.
it's kind of like the complete antithesis to Bolt. Like Bolt is a strong, confident super dog, and Mittens is like a street smart, cynical, insecure. Well, I wouldn't say insecure, but like uh sensitive maybe.
yeah,
Cat.
they're almost like complete opposites,
I know, yeah.
which is reflected by the fact that Bolt is a dog and Mittens is a cat.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
then in the movie, Bolt kind of helps build Mittens up to be a better, I guess, person. Because I don't really know how else to word it. And then she also helps him become a better person by knocking him down a peg. Because Bolt has to find out that he's not invincible.
Another aspect to that is Bolt is all white and has a black lightning bolt on him, and Mittens is all black with a little bit of white on her,
Yeah, yeah,
like yin and yang.
yeah.
God.
Another thing worth noting is that like Bolt, I wouldn't call him dumb, but I'd call him naive.
Yeah, that's a good word.
And then
Yeah.
Mittens is, as you said, SodorExpress Studios. Mittens is street smart.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and then there's Rhino. And I mean, like, I've heard some people call Rhino annoying. And I mean, yeah, like, he's emotional, I guess is a good word. But I think
Yeah.
that Rhino's inclusion is still important, not just for the plot, but also because, and that's another thing about Bolt that I'm glad that they address. It's like Bolt's relation with basically his fandom. Because I guess Rhino kind of represents his fandom.
Mhm.
And I mean, of course, it's going to be an aspect of any major TV show or piece of pop culture. So that's basically the representation of that. Oh, Discord.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Another. I do think that Rhino does add something to the movie in terms of comedy. He's like downright hilarious at times.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I like how the plan they come up with to distract the freaking, I don't know, night guard.
Yeah.
FNF reference. To distract the night guard, just to throw. They just throw Rhino into the room, and
With
he
the
just does
dogs.
that to distract
Yeah.
the dogs. Like he does not care that he could potentially get
Yeah.
hurt.
Yeah.
And like they take advantage of the fact that he's a little hamster in a ball.
Yeah.
And one thing that I like about Rhino is there's that one scene after he frees Bolt, but Mittens is still in the custody of the animal officers.
Yeah.
Like that's like the pivotal moment in the movie where Bolt realizes like he's
Yeah.
not
That's like-
not who he thought he was.
Yeah. Well, I guess also kind of close to the ending of the movie where he thinks that Penny forgot about him. That's like also his lowest point, but I get what you mean.
Yeah, and Rhino's there, and while he is like still comedic in that scene, it's not to the point where he's like taking you out of the moment, and he helps build Bolt's confidence back up.
Yeah.
And he
Like-
learns that like he's not invincible, but he's still like
He can still be
capable
a hero.
of being like a hero.
While we're on the subject of Rhino, I have the DVD, and in the DVD they have a short called Super Rhino,
Yeah.
where like Rhino has a dream where he has powers, and I think it's hilarious.
Yeah, it is though. Yeah.
And he sings "Best of Both Worlds" from Hannah Montana.
Like I love the part where his ball ends like a meteor, and then there's a callback back to the movie where he just rubs two little eye holes in, and then a frowny face to show that he's mad.
Stealth mode.
Like that was perfect.
Yes, very.
Also, like the meme potential of all the scenes in that. I've made various memes based on that part of the movie.
Yeah, there are so
Ring.
many potentials for like meme templates in Bolt.
Like
Ring ring. Who is this? Destiny?
I
was expecting your call.
Yeah. That's another thing about Rhino. Like, he knows when he can be funny, but he also knows like, okay, this is serious.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all are giving me ideas for when I eventually make a third Bolt YouTube poop.
Oh boy. Okay.
It's a good day to die.
My watch, Rodent. Okay, while we're talking about that, let's talk about the fire scene for a second, because it's like, of course, I'm thinking about how, and I'm kind of gonna give a little backstory here. I've been a Bolt fan for like a long time. Like, I liked the movie when I was a little kid. Like I mentioned, I have the DVD, and of course, I enjoyed seeing the train. But when I was little, I didn't think too much about the fire scene. I was just like, oh yeah, Bolt saves Penny. But now I'm looking at it as like a teenager, and I realize if this fire scene was real, it was probably going to be like a national tragedy or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I saw the original movie so many times as a kid, but like when you get older, you develop your emotions better, apparently.
Oh,
And
yeah.
like people have told me that they'll cry during the fire scene or like cry during the ending. I don't do that because like I've seen the movie so many times,
Yeah.
it doesn't really have an effect on my emotions.
I'll fully admit I straight up started tearing up at the fire scene, but I mean that's also partly because I haven't seen the movie in like a really long time.
Yeah. But like, that's like the scene where he finally gets the chance to be a real, like, legitimate hero, and he follows through.
Yeah, like that kind of brings the whole movie full circle. Like it's not TV. Like this is straight up real life, no games.
Mm-hmm. But you don't need superpowers to be a superhero.
Yeah.
Batman.
Yeah.
Boodle bottom.
How concepts like that have been done multiple times before, but again, just because it's been used multiple times doesn't mean like, oh, just a copycat. Yeah, I don't know.
I think probably like I really wasn't a Bolt fan until like probably like earlier this year, because most of my life I like our family would be watching the movie. I'd have my brain thinking about something else, not really paying attention up until we get to the train scene where I promptly lose my mind, and then it ends and I continue going back to not thinking.
Yeah.
Like I remember watching the train scene for the first time when I was really young. I think I might have been 3 or 4. I think it happened in 2009 when I watched it. We did not see it in theaters, which is tragic, and I will never see it in theaters, and I'm going to cry about that. Anyway, so I remember sitting on the couch, and then a CSX train just rolls past the screen. I'm like, oh my gosh, CSX in a Disney movie? This is awesome.
Yeah, dream come true.
Like, yeah, like I'd seen CSX in real life, so like seeing it in a movie was crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I don't remember the first time I saw Bolt. I was really young when it was first released, so I just remember always liking it. But of course, I love the train scene too. And I remember, like, in the main menu of the DVD, the main menu of the DVD actually is the train scene. Like, it opens with this.
Oh, yeah.
Bolt and friends in the boxcar, like, looking out at the passing fields. I've always liked that shot. It's really good.
One thing I found odd is that in the DVD menu, they changed the shot a little bit and have the camera pan towards the train a bit more at the end than in the actual movie.
Huh. Okay.
Another weird thing is there's a poster for the movie that shows Bolt, Rhino, and Mittens doing the train scene jump, but it shows the locomotive, except this time you can clearly see that the yellow's been covered up with this different shade of blue.
That was the case in the trailer also.
Yeah. Well, in the trailer, actually, no. In the trailer, they used white text for 432, but for that poster, it's yellow. So I think what happened is they first made the movie. They didn't have CSX in the plot yet, but they made a CSX looking train where we see it without the yellow and where we see the white 432 numbering. Then we see the final version that has the CSX YN2 with the yellow 432 numbering. And then there's that poster, which is the final train, except they like poorly covered up the yellow on the front.
I think they just needed to get like permission to use the branding from CSX, which again shows that like effort of like getting permission when they could have just gone the easy way out and just made it like have the blue front and no CSX markings, and yet they went the extra mile.
Yeah. Yeah, but according to, I asked my mom about this. She said that the reason that they got rid of the yellow on the poster was so that they wouldn't have to pay CSX again.
Mm.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
Another part of the movie I think that's worth mentioning, like, one thing a lot of people don't notice about Bolt is that a lot of the scenes are CGI put directly onto a painting.
Yeah, I just noticed that recently too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know that building in New York that has Bolt's face on it? That's a painting.
Yeah, ooh, that is a good painting. And like a lot of like the passing landscape in the train scene, that's a painting. I know you this, Joe, but the shot of the gas station that the animal control van went to, you mentioned that that's a painting.
Yeah, that is. I love that scene so much because my grandparents' house, it's in a small town almost exactly like that, and there's a gas station just down the block. So it looks exactly like that at night, my grandparents' house, and you have the curving road going out to the bigger city in the distance. It's just a beautiful painting. Another accurate portrayal of Ohio and Bolt.
Yeah, there weren't enough. Now, in Nebraska, my grandparents live in a small town in Nebraska, and obviously it's not Ohio, but they do have like a brick road and smaller buildings and stuff like that, which then, even if it's Nebraska and not Ohio, there's still a resemblance.
Midwest gang rise up.
Yeah, Central Time. Sorry, Sess.
Ohio's in Eastern Time, though.
Oh, yeah.
But it's still part of the Midwest.
Yeah, well...
This has been a thought that's been crossing my mind for years, but, like, can't we just split the Midwest in half and have Michigan, Indiana, and Ohio become the Mid-East?
That's a good point. I mean,
because, like, I've been on both sides of Chicago. Like, I've been in west of Chicago, east of Chicago. They're different slightly.
Yeah.
Like, Indiana on the east side of Chicago is going to be different from Illinois on the west side of Chicago.
Yeah, like I've heard that there's I've heard there's like an East Chicago in Indiana, kind of like how like there's an East St. Louis in Illinois.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although I will admit that Ohio and Illinois and Iowa are very similar, so I do see why it's the Midwest.
Yeah. I mean, Ohio and Illinois are part of the Rust Belt, and like they're on my visit to Chicago is, as of now, the only time I've ever seen the Great Lakes. I mean, I'd like to watch that, but yeah.
Speaking of like the Midwest, I'm not sure if this is a headcanon or not, because the movie itself doesn't go against this, but like I believe that like Penny's house that we see at the end of the film, that's the intersection of 25A and Amsterdam Road, just south of Botkins, Ohio. Because if you go there in real life, it looks identical minus the house.
Yeah.
Like the telephone poles are on the left side of the road. There's a water tower in the distance. There's grain elevators in the distance. There's trees around there. It looks like that.
All right. Yeah. That is true, though. Like, that's a compelling theory. I will say, though, maybe we could, like, mention, like, just mentioning the people, because, like, the humans are part of Bolt 2. Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of people say this, including me, but the agent guy, he looks like someone from Meet the Robinsons.
Like Lewis, but grown up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And Meet the Robinsons also has a train in it. Coincidence? Well, it's a different train, though, so... But I also... Oh, so what?
The agent guy, I like how he's sort of crazy.
Yeah, like he's kind of... Yeah, I don't know. Like he's
like
an anti-hero almost.
like the part where he says, I wrote a baseball mitt to school every day. Like that is not normal human behavior. That is not normal child behavior.
Yeah.
Like clearly something's wrong with him.
Yeah, I don't know. But I do like how Bolt shows like the behind the scenes of show business, which
Yeah.
isn't really shown in all that movies, and especially not animated.
Oh yeah, because the agent very
Yeah,
punchable.
and like Mindy from the network and how they like boom mic. Yeah.
Speaking of that, I love the feature that Bolt lives in an Airstream trailer. The Airstream where they make those things, it's in Jackson Center, Ohio, which isn't too far from where my grandparents live. So I see Airstreams very often. So it's pretty cool getting to see those in Bolt.
That is pretty cool, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I'm probably gonna have to give a spoiler warning to this because yeah, we've talked about a lot of the movie, but already gotten the notion. Check out Bolt. It is an amazing movie, as you can probably tell by our reviews.
There's a dog.
Yeah.
So before we go, what is everyone's favorite character and why?
Ooh.
Ooh, I'd probably say Bolt himself.
Yeah.
Yes, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Like, I just love his design. He's just so cute. Like, look at him.
Yeah.
And I like his personality, too. He's funny. He's brave. He's kind of dumb sometimes.
Impulsive, kind of like talking about dumb.
Yeah.
I like how they chose to make him a very unique dog because I'm pretty sure white shepherds are rare.
One time I was driving, I think I was driving back from the Fox River Trolley Museum, and I saw a white Swiss Shepherd and literally screamed aloud in my car, it's Bolt.
Yeah.
I think I've seen a white Swiss Shepherd. I don't know if it was a white Shepherd or like some kind of. I remember seeing like some white dog with pointy ears in a car, but I didn't get.
Like, it's kind of unknown what type of breed Bolt is, but I think it's a white Swiss Shepherd due to he's kind of fluffy. He has brown eyes, which is what white Swiss Shepherds have, and he looks a lot like one, just a tiny one.
Yeah, that is true. He's got kind of a Napoleon complex almost.
Yeah. Another thing I kind of like him. He has brown eyes. I also have brown eyes, so that's kind of cool.
Oh, I got blue eyes, but yeah, that's cool.
Yes. So Sodor, who's your favorite?
Probably. It's probably a tie between Bolt and Mittens because I like Bolt's journey, but I also like how complex of a character Mittens is. But she's also funny. So
yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I am concerned on a number of levels.
Yeah, like her sass. Like she's such a smart aleck.
Yeah.
I like how in the lead up to the train scene she puts a bucket on her head to protect herself.
Yeah.
It's like we don't know where she got the bucket, but we know at some point she grabbed the bucket because she knew what horrible thing was going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, I imagine they'd probably have to wait a little while for a train to come.
Yeah.
Like, I can imagine that, like, they're walking towards that bridge. I deduce that bridge is somewhere near... Well, I have the exact location of the bridge in real life because one time me and, like, I think another person... Actually, no, there was no other person. It was just me being crazy. I figured out exactly what rail line they were on and what town they fell off at. I can't remember what town it was, but I'll give it to you guys later. Maybe you could put it in the description, train person, but...
I can do this. Like I'm planning on. I can just fix it in post. Yeah.
Yeah. So I did figure out where the real bridge was, which is fun to know. But I imagine that like Bolt, Mittens, and Rhino are walking there. Mittens asks, "Hey, where are we going?" And then Rhino's like, "To the train tracks." And then Mittens like, "Oh no, no, no!" And then she like at one point runs away with Bolt attached, but she isn't very able to get far, so she just grabs a bucket off someone's porch and just wears that to the train scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Apparently, Bolt's original name was Henry.
Oh yeah, we gotta. Okay, while we're talking about this, let's mention American Dog. So, Bolt had a pilot, basically.
Yeah, and it was very different.
Yeah. So it's kind of a similar trope of like superstar dog going on a cross country trip. An American Dog also had trains in it. That's pretty cool.
So speaking of that train thing, if you were paying close attention during the train scene, you might have noticed that like there were 1940s, 1950s era tank cars on the train. Those were originally going to be in an American Dog, the original Bolt pilot. And like there's a test footage video on YouTube where you can see those exact same tank cars on a freight train with box cars.
Yeah.
And I do think that the boxcar model from an American Dog, I think it was reused in the scene where Bolt, Mittens, and Rhino are in that freight car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is such a scene though. Like usually I'm not one for music numbers in movies, but when I was watching that was just a massive rush of dopamine. I had a massive smile on my face that whole time.
Yeah.
I think you know the I'm pretty sure some of you are familiar with I Love Toy Trains, right?
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's a scene in I'm a Train, the I'm a Train music video where like you see this Baltimore and Ohio boxcar roll by. I actually bought that exact boxcar from the producers, so it's cool to have a prop from that. But this blue boxcar rolls by, my brain, which had been infected with Bolt references at that point, thought, okay, what if I were to like edit Bolt and the gang into it? And I did just that. I have like a screenshot of Bolt and the gang in a Baltimore and Ohio boxcar, and I Love Toy Trains. It's kind of funny to look at.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't really know. There might be more to talk about, but I might be missing some. You guys think of anything else?
I do have something funny that I think about sometimes. I think I went like at least 7 years without watching Bolt at one point. And in those 7 years, I misremembered that Waffle World was Waffle House. Like I thought like a couple months ago, I thought that Waffle House was featured in Bolt.
That would have been cool though.
But if you have not been to Waffle House, go to Waffle House. You need to right now. It's really good.
I saw one in North Carolina.
Like their waffles are really good.
Yeah. I don't know if it's still on YouTube, but I remember like in the early 2010s, I saw some kind of YouTube video that was like, you know, the "Do You Like Waffles" song?
Yeah.
I saw there was like someone who made a video with that, but it's like with Bolt over it, so it's like they're singing.
Oh,
wow. Yeah, something like that. But I kind of had a similar story where I liked Bolt, but I fell out of it for quite a few years. Like in middle school and a lot of high school, I never even touched the movie. I just didn't think about it at all. And then recently, I just rewatched it, and I'm completely hooked once again. Hence,
I got I'm a Train person back into Bolt. I forced him to join the Bolt cult.
Let's go, the Bolt cult.
Yes, the Bolt cult.
The Bolt cult.
I will admit, Joe is part of the reason why I got back into the Bolt community.
The Bolt cult.
But yeah, anyways, yeah, it's pretty fun.
Yes.
All right.
Also, the music in certain parts is like really good.
Oh yeah, especially "Barking at the Moon" and "I Thought I Lost You." I love those songs.
I really like the music ditty that happens when the train goes past the screen at high speed.
Yeah. I've actually started learning "There Is No Home Like the," or I guess it's called "Barking at the Moon." Excuse me. I started learning.
Oh, where'd he go?
Yeah, very gradual, but I'm getting there.
Cool. So, what was I going to say again? Oh, yeah. If I had to improve the movie, I would do one thing. I would hide a John Deere tractor in the background somewhere because it feels wrong that there isn't one in that movie.
Yeah. So yeah, that's Bolt. I don't really know.
Yay.
Check it out if you haven't checked it out. It's a very nice movie. It's in Once Upon a Studio. I really
Yes.
enjoyed.
Yes. I
Yeah,
haven't seen that short because I don't have Disney Plus. Heartbreaking. But yeah, I do think it's cool that they featured him in that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when they easily forgot him because it's not exactly, no offense, but it's not exactly like the most well-known Disney movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they sadly forgot Casey Jr., which is an absolute crime.
That is pressing, yes. Casey Jr. and 432 meet up when?
That should I could draw that. I really should.
Yes, that would be fun.
I'm just over here thankful for the fact that Bolt never got a sequel.
Yes.
That's true.
Good,
Yeah.
thank God.
Bro, where Penny like actually gets kidnapped.
Bro, what?
I was kind of thinking what happened to like Bolt's replacement, and when I was younger, I thought maybe there could be a sequel with like Bolt's replacement and how like he might struggle with issues because poor guy's just kind of ignorant and everything, and he kind of just ran away after the fire, and we never saw him again.
I have a headcanon that Bolt that ran away after the fire, it's the one that we see again at the end of the film in the TV show. And that was the last, and that was probably the last episode of the show before, like, I think I'm a Train Person came up with this. Like, the show was shut down immediately after this because of animal abuse.
Yeah, I'd like to think that, especially after the whole fire thing, there would
Yeah.
have been a lot more regulations involved with like animals on TV shows, and making it so that they don't think it's actually real.
And then I imagine that Bolt went home with Fat Penny, so that way, happy ending for him too.
Yippee!
Aliens. Oh snap.
Audiences love aliens.
Imagine how funny it would be if there was a Bolt sequel where, like, the villain is the blue-eyed man that Mittens warned us about, and the blue-eyed man is the agent.
Bolt, Mittens, and Rhino go to New Mexico and try to see if there are aliens.
Yes.
They go on the Southwest Chief.
Amtrak.
Yes.
What if the blue-eyed man was the agent all along?
Does he have eyes?
The agent has blue eyes.
Oh, you're right. Ooh, twist villain, but Disney's already done a lot of those, so I don't know.
Yes.
Twist villain. The woman who works at the animal shelter is the twist. Thinking with idiots.
Yeah,
so she's gonna take over the world.
She's gonna get revenge for Bolt, Mittens, and Rhino for destroying her new truck.
You two boys need serious help.
Icy eyes.
Sweet sister Francis, what did you do to my new truck?
He turns around and completely gets pepper spray all over.
That part of the movie is so funny.
Working with toddlers.
Louis Spoon, if you jump out and scare me, I'm gonna pepper spray you again.
I really like how they gave the animal control people personalities and gave them that dynamic when they really didn't need to.
Yeah.
It makes it feel more real.
Quit twisting your giblets!
I feel like that's the only inappropriate joke in the entire movie.
I don't get it.
Good. Anyway.
Innocent marshmallow. Yeah.
That and like I think there's like two bits of potty humor in the movie, but that's about it.
Oh yeah, there's like one kind of like
you gotta eat out of this. Laugh.
Yeah, there's like dog butt humor, but that's a dog thing, so.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I like how like there's only two instances of that humor, which I appreciate.
Yeah, it's not like excessive, and
so most of the humor is character and just scene driven, and I love it.
Yeah, and it still fits in with like dog personality.
Yeah,
so it's not completely like unnecessary, where it's like they're just throwing it in for a cheap laugh.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. Yeah.
One
So,
thing, one thing that was original. I think there were two scenes that were originally going to be in the movie. I think there was going to be like one where Bolt doesn't learn, where Bolt learns he doesn't have powers because he has to go up against two street dogs.
oh, wasn't this in like Las Vegas? Because
Yeah,
Oh
it's
yeah,
just
I've seen the storyboards for that.
it's just heartbreaking to watch.
don't they like what happens? Do they like get mugged or something?
They scratch
No,
him up,
like
I think.
like
Oof.
some person gives Bolt a little piece of steak, and like two street dogs just hurt him for it.
Oh,
Yeah.
man. I think there's also a deleted scene with like some kind of like rhino falls into a river or something.
A hamster has fallen into the river in rural Ohio. Start the rescue helicopter.
Hey,
Build the helicopter. Yeah, that was a deleted scene.
prepare the lifeline. Lower the stretcher.
Yeah, Bolt was going to learn that he didn't have powers after he like just barely saves the rhino from falling into the river.
Oh yeah.
I literally can't. Like, I've reached a point where if someone brings up falling into the river, the Lego City commercial will start in my head.
Yeah. Even though I think that meme's been dead for like 2 years now.
3.
Oh man, that proves my point, and yet still,
It still makes me laugh.
yes, it does.
Hmm.
Well, unless I think of something else, I don't really know much else of what to say besides Bolt is a good movie. Check it out if you can.
If you say anything negative about Bolt, I will break into your house and remove your kneecaps
Me
and
personally, I
replace
think
them
it
with
could have used
golf
a little bit of
balls.
improvement, but it's not the best movie ever. But I mean, it's all right. I'm kidding.
Yeah, it's not like the greatest movie to ever exist, but it's a really good movie. I will say that. It's definitely one of my favorites.
It's very solid.
It's my favorite movie.
Ooh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I don't know much else, so
Yeah.
thank you
All
for
right.
us talking about the movie with the talking animals and the trains. It is very cool. Check it out. I think we've gotten that point across by now. So,
Okay.
thanks for watching and listening.
Bye.
Bye.
So long, everybody.